understand you more as we progress. Even you can also connect between yourselves to yeah, okay, then fine. Okay, so many of you have confirmed that you are good with the roadmap. Okay, so let's start. Okay, so this is my recommendation. Okay, so Microsoft recommends a little different. So there are multiple different certification levels. So the basic fundamental level, they say like if you just go and understand what the cloud offering is, you can go and take the fundamental certification. But if you want to take the associate level certification, which is like network engineer, administrator, and so on, they are recommending like 2 years of comprehensive working experience. But I'm saying like you don't have to wait that long. You can complete in 2 or 3 months. And for solution architect, Microsoft is recommending 2 to 5 years of deep technical experience. So this is recommendation from Microsoft, not me. So I'm just telling you to go and complete all these 4 certification within the next 3 or 4 months. Okay, so we are going to cover AZ 900, AZ 104, SC 900, and AZ 700. Okay, so today and tomorrow, we are going to mainly cover around the fundamentals. So for the fundamental exam, you just need to understand the cloud concept, the different service model, and the different shared responsibility model that we have in cloud is what you need to understand. And if you have some good understanding of core Azure services, basics of security, and then the pricing and support, so you should be good to go and attend that exam. So we will be trying to cover that in this week and the next week. So by end of next week, you should be all ready to go and appear for the fundamental exam. So I'm going to give you a link on the chat. Okay, so you can just open that link. So through which you can go and register for Microsoft online event. And once after you attend that event, using that email address, if you go and register for the exam, so you will get a complete 100% discount on the exam. So after you are, I mean, if you have attended the session and if you have not got the response from Microsoft, you can reach to tech skills support at Microsoft, and you can confirm, you can take a screenshot of your attendance and you can say I've attended the session, but I have not got any confirmation from them. Okay, so once after you attend that, using the same email ID, you have to go and register for the exam. You will get a 100% voucher, which you can use for any fundamental exam. So let me give you the link, just a second. Okay, I'm going to paste the link on the chat. So you can go and register for that Microsoft online event. And using that attendance, you can get free vouchers. So I'll give you, there are multiple sessions that are scheduled, but what I'll do is I'll give you a link, which is for 14th of August, so that you also complete the current session with me, as well as you complete that online session. You will be much more comfortable in taking that exam. Okay, so let me know once you have got the link on the chat. So everyone should have received the chat link now. So once after you open that, okay, you should see something like this, what I'm sharing in the screen now. So it will say Microsoft Azure Virtual Training Day Fundamentals, and you can go and register for this. So this is GMT +4, but the timing is in the afternoon. I mean, I think based on your time zone. So people in this session are attending from US, Europe, and different regions. So maybe you can convert this. And if in case this particular virtual training day is not suitable for you, you can go and find out different event or different event on a different timing zone. If you click here, it will take you to the other set of sessions and you will be able to use it. Yeah, that is right. So whatever email address that you are using here, you have to use the same email address for attending the exam. So no, you don't have to use the company email ID. You can use your own personal email ID for this event, and the same personal email ID, you can use it for attending the exam. Okay, so see, as you see here, as part of this 2-day session, so maybe like the session is just for only kind of 2 hours, I would say. Okay, so even though they have scheduled it for 3 hours here, it will be like 2.5 hour session. And if you look at the content, they will be discussing the same cloud fundamentals and they will be talking about Azure Compute, then networking, storage, and then governance and compliance. So these are the core pillars, right? Take it any like even in your on premises, compute, networking, storage, security, identity and access management. So these are the core IT pillars, and that is what they are also going to explain. So advantage of this session, they are going to specifically talk about this particular Azure fundamental exams. So this is just what enough information for attending the exam, and also you get a kind of voucher through which you can attend the exam for free. So those are the two advantages. So we are also going to discuss almost the same content, but we will be covering much more than what they are going to cover in this. Okay, so hope everyone got the link. No, you can you have link for other fundamentals also. If in case you need the complete catalog, let me know. I'll provide it in the WhatsApp. Yeah, this particular link that I gave is for AZ900. This is for Azure fundamentals. But then if you are looking for other data fundamentals or security fundamentals, I'll also provide that link. But I would recommend to complete this particular event, which is scheduled for 14th. There are other scheduled events also on the same week in different time zone. I'll give you the complete catalog so you can register for whichever is suitable for your time zone. Okay, so once after you complete that uh, training from Microsoft, okay, so you can go and appear for the exam. I'll also give you exam preparation materials. You can also quickly refer that before appearing for the exam. In the exam, you'll have at least 35 to 40 knowledge-based questions. There is no simulation. There is it is all multiple choice. You just have to go and select the best out of the listed answers, and there is no lab component in that particular exam. And even for the last 2-3 years, Microsoft has removed all the lab simulations from even the higher level exams like associate and the specialty exams. People are attending the exams from home, so we cannot expect everyone to have a good network bandwidth. So there is no lab component for the last 3-4 years, but I think now they are bringing it back into some of the higher level exams. The lab simulation related stuffs are coming back, but for the last 3-4 years, there has been no lab simulation in any of the exams. So you'll have to score a minimum of 700 out of the total 1,000 points in order to pass the exam. It is a 70% is the pass for all the Microsoft related exams. Okay, so this is the first step, and whatever we are going to discuss is around these stuffs. Like in practical, we are going to explore a lot. So we have 3 months of discussion that are scheduled. So this is for the administrator one. So admin, if you are planning to appear for Azure Administrator Associate, so you know again the core IT pillars, right? Compute, network, storage, backup, monitoring, and identity and access management, including security. So these are the key pillars that you will be tested in the next level exam. So not the 900 exam. 900 exam is more about cloud concepts and the basics. So once after you complete it, you can prepare yourself on these areas. So we are anyways going to discuss every 2 weeks. We are going to have a new topic. So we'll have 2 weeks of complete compute. We'll have 2.5 weeks of networking related discussion, and then we'll move on to data and storage, followed by identity and access management. We'll also discuss about backup, migration, monitoring, and so on. So once after we complete all these modules, so you can go and appear for the next level exam, which is Microsoft Azure Administrator. So this is an optional exam. There is no prerequisite as such to appear for the next level of exam. You can also directly appear for Azure Administrator exam. So there are no prerequisites. So this is some weightage that I'm showing here. So if you are looking to cover a specific topics, if compute has got more weightage, network has got more weightage in 104 exam, whereas the basic subscription, storage, and identity and governance, they have got comparatively less weightage in the exam. So for example, if you are having 60 questions in the exam, so almost 15 to 17 questions will be from the compute, and similarly 17 to 20 questions will be from the network, and so on. Okay, so this is a kind of weightage across your exam questions. And for the people who are taking the exam from India, it is approximately 4,700 INR for the second level exam. And I think it is again $100 for the fundamental exam as well. Okay. Okay, let's move on. So we already discussed about the syllabus. Okay, so we are going to have detailed discussion on each of the areas. We are going to have 2 weeks of compute related discussion, 2 weeks of network, 2 weeks of storage backup, and then we have a lot of sessions around cloud operations and management, followed by security, then containerization. Okay, now let's get into the first specific subtopic, which is cloud definition. Okay, let me open up the Excel sheet here, and then we will move with our approach. Any questions before we do that? Okay, let me tell you one thing. Okay, if you have questions, you can ask it right away if you're asking it in English. But if you want to ask it in Tamil, you can note that question at the end of the session. You can ask me in Tamil also. I can stay back for some time and I can explain that. Okay.
Stanley.
Yes.
Yeah, hi, Senthil here.
Yes.
Actually, you shown on the registration, right? That is not exclusive for 900, right? Because I already completed 900 exam.
No,
So
that is, see, that is for 900. And what you can do is you can also, let me do one thing. Okay, let me
I'm
give
looking
you the
for
complete,
104 kind of session like
okay,
this
okay,
registration.
104 related sessions, right? Just a second. I'll give you the complete catalog.
Okay, thank you. And even you can attend that Microsoft session. You'll also going to cover the same kind of stuff here, right?
But not limited to that specific content, because like those sessions are specific for what do you call the exam
900.
specific thing. Yeah,
Okay.
900, and even for other data sessions, but we are going to cover much more. Even
Okay.
for 900, see, we are going to have at least what I would say in the, like 12 hours of session, whereas they will have only 5 hours of sessions. Okay, so it is going to be a deep dive discussion. Let me give you the complete catalog from which you can pick and choose which courses you want to attend from Microsoft directly. Okay, so yeah, I'll share the complete catalog. Yes.
Okay, fine. And one more question, like,
Yes.
so we are covering this 900 and 104 and other two things.
Yeah.
So you can let us know, right? And what point, and we, in which point we are in 900 or 104. Once it's complete, you'll just let us know, right? I mean, in the syllabus wise.
Correct. See, I'll again maybe for better clarity, I'll show you
Yeah.
this. Just a second.
Okay.
Okay, that's a good question. Let me show you this. August 2023. Is my screen visible? No, right?
No, not yet.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. So let me share it again, just to answer that question. See, this is what I have shared to all of you, right? I have shared this same screenshot to all of you. And if you look at here on the right, you have a color coding, right? So there is a green color for 900. So you can expect some questions from these green colored topic. So what you are going to
Okay.
do is you are going to attend the Azure fundamental session on 14th and 15th of August, possibly, right? And by that time, we will also cover most of the content. Okay, so we thought of starting the session tomorrow, but then I have preponed it by a day. Okay, so we have started today itself. So today and tomorrow we'll be discussing more on the cloud, and we'll have complete Azure fundamental related discussions next week, next Saturday and Sunday. And these colored ones are for the next level. So you can expect questions for 104 exam from these discussions, like compute advanced. There are 3 or 4 days of session on compute, and there are again 4 days of session on network. So the color coding is relating it to
Yeah.
this one. Okay,
Now
okay.
I'm
So
clear. Yeah.
yeah, got
Yeah.
it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Fine. Okay, let me come to my sheet. So here in this sheet, what we are going to do is we are going to discuss cloud and benefits first, followed by we are going to talk about cloud service model. Okay, and we'll also talk about cloud deployment model. So based on the time, we'll also discuss about the disadvantages and also some more topics around cloud, right? So, okay, so I know many of you might already know the definition of cloud, but since we are on a training session, we have to definitely try and define it out, right? So let's define cloud first. Okay, so different public cloud providers define it differently, right? So if you ask Amazon, they are the uh, long-term public cloud provider, right? They started in 2005, whereas Microsoft started in 2010. So as per Amazon, so they call cloud as on-demand delivery of any IT related infrastructure or application via cloud service platform through internet with pay-as-you-go pricing model. So this is what they say in their definition. So, but Microsoft, they say like it is more about renting instead of buying, right? So let's come to that. But here in this definition, if you look at here, there are multiple important key characteristics that is hidden here. Okay, so the very first characteristics is on-demand delivery. So unlike your on-premises traditional data center, if you are looking for more capacity in terms of CPU, memory, or storage, if you already have spare capacity, you can go and expand it. But then if you don't have spare capacity, you have to go and procure, followed by shipping, and then you have to kind of rack and stack and then expand the capacity. Whereas in the cloud, you get all the resources on demand. So you can get it anytime. So if you want to increase your capacity from 100 GB to 1 terabyte or 1 terabyte to 10 terabyte, you can do it online. You can do it anytime, anywhere. So that is what they call it as on-demand delivery. So you can do it on the fly. There is no waiting time. And also there is unlimited capacity that you get in terms of compute, storage, network. So you can get unlimited capacity in the public cloud. So here we are primarily going to discuss about Microsoft Cloud, which is a public cloud offering from Microsoft. So we are going to discuss about Azure. So here there is no kind of virtual limit. So you can keep on adding your storage. You can also get unlimited capacity. Okay, so and then here they say any IT related infrastructure or application. So you can get compute capacity, CPU, you can get memory, you can get storage, you can get database as a service, you can get software as a service in the public cloud. So you will get infrastructure as well as application. And they say you are going to get that using a platform which is called cloud service platform. So CSP here refers to the cloud service platform through which they are giving you or they are allowing you to access the compute, storage, the databases, and so on. So Microsoft Azure is the cloud service platform from Microsoft. And similarly, Amazon has got Amazon Web Services, which is their cloud service platform through which we are accessing the data center of Amazon and accessing their compute, storage, database, and so on. Similarly, Google Cloud Platform. So this is from Google. So these are the top three vendors, right? There are much more public cloud providers like Alibaba, Oracle Cloud, and so on. But then these are the top three cloud service provider, and this is their platform. So Azure is the platform through which you are accessing Microsoft data center resources. It can be CPU, memory, storage, or database, whatever is hosted on their data center. So we are accessing through their cloud service platform. Since these are all public cloud offering, so we have to use internet to access this public cloud platform. So these are all Azure, AWS, GCP, these are all public cloud offering platform. So we have to use internet to access the services. So there are options. You can connect via VPN and you can also make it more secure. But at the end, it is through the internet. You can secure your connectivity. You can add VPN and you can also have secure connectivity from your data center. But all these services are hosted via the internet, so you can access it through their cloud services platform through the internet. And the last one that they mentioned is pay as you go pricing model. So they are saying that it is more of the consumption model. So whatever you are consuming, like your electricity, water consumption at home, it is like a utility pricing model. So pay as you go pricing model. So it is consumption based model. Whatever you are consuming, like your utility, water, electricity, so it is being measured, and based on your consumption, you have to pay for your consumption. Okay, so this is a kind of very good standard definition that you can see. But if you look at some Microsoft site, they will mention that it is delivery of computing services over the network, is what Microsoft says in some of their uh, articles. Okay, so in general, this is much better, but you can also use in simple words, you can say it is delivery of computing services over the network to the customer is what we call it as cloud. Okay, so computing services can be, it can be like your virtual machine, or it can be storage, it can be database, and it can be any software as a service also. So computing services here refers to both infrastructure as well as the application, networking, database, and so on. Okay, so this is what we can call it as definition. And within the definition, we can see that there are a lot of core characteristics of cloud that is being highlighted. Okay, so if you ask me like whether we are consuming cloud only from the vendors listed here, no. So for example, you are listening to songs nowadays from home through the internet, you are reading a lot of book materials over the internet, and even you are accessing the drive your private car, like you are using Uber services. You are if you want to commute from one place to another place, you are using online application. So you have been using the cloud from different providers, but you might not have considered those as a cloud offering. But in fact, those are all cloud offering. So you are listening to music online, you are booking your online ticket, you are renting your car, or you are booking a car for your short journey, and so on. So those are all cloud offering in your real life scenarios. But here in the customer, like in the business application requirement, the business application needs CPU, memory, storage, database, and so on. And for those resources, we are having a kind of contractual obligation with providers like Microsoft, Amazon, and we are consuming it. And after the month end, so based on the consumption, we are paying for it. So in simple words, we can say cloud as renting instead of buying. See, earlier, if you want to have a house, we used to buy, right? If you want to have a car, we used to buy it. But then things have changed. Technology has come. Now you have options to go and rent a house, rent a car, and so on. Similarly, these IT companies have decided to provide computing services for rent. Okay, so that is what, in simple words, cloud is. Cloud is renting computing services to different customer. Okay, and there are some challenges around this, so we'll not discuss more about disadvantage now itself. We'll talk about disadvantages at the end of the session today, because like we are going to run our business application on someone else hardware. Okay, so that is what we are going to do here, right? So the hardware is owned by Microsoft or Amazon, but the business application is ours, and we are going to take a risk of running them on someone else hardware. But still, that is fine. Okay, so I'll tell you why that is okay, because of the security management governance from the provider is very good. So I'll talk about that later. So there are some disadvantages of going with this model. I'll not say it is always 100% advantage. There are some disadvantages also with this model. Okay, so the very important thing, there is the instant delivery, so you get anytime, anywhere. So there is no waiting time, so you get it on demand. So whenever you want something, you will get it. Okay, so this is what I will say it as a definition of cloud. Now we will list down some benefits of cloud. Okay, generally, like these sessions are interactive sessions. Okay, I don't want to just make it one way. So some of them are just seeing my message. Sorry, just a second. Just give a second. I'll it looks like some of them have not seen my message and just seeing it. Okay, let me talk to them after the initial break. Okay, so I just want to understand what is your core list of items when it comes to cloud. Okay, so why do you want uh, to learn cloud, or what do you feel that is more beneficial for the customer when it comes to cloud? Do you have any specific points to share? I have maybe 20-25 points to share here, but I just want to understand your perspective. Okay, so I could see OPEX model in the chat. Okay, cost. Okay, fine. Okay, what else? Okay, resources. Okay, pay whatever. Okay, pay for whatever you need. Space, high availability. Okay, resources. Okay, all good. Okay, good. Okay, so let's do one thing. Okay, I'll give you maybe the top 5-6 points when I mean, if you are appearing for the exam, either Microsoft Azure or AWS. So these 5 points are very important. So I think one of the point is already listed there. So reducing capital expenditure investment. Okay, so Karthik has mentioned that, and even Debashish has mentioned the same point. Okay, so the very first point is that trading capital expenditure into operational expenditure. So what that means is, like, there are two different things on how you can purchase certain things, right? So you can also go with capital expenditure model. You can pay upfront and then buy it, right? And then once after you start using it, you reap the benefit, right? So this is capital expenditure model. So that is how IT industry used to work earlier. So whenever we want to have a server hardware or storage capacity or any specific devices, we used to go and pay it upfront and buy it. Whereas now it is operational expenditure model or OPEX model. Okay, so OPEX model is you are pay as per your usage. So pay as you go pricing model. OPEX model is you are consuming it and we are paying for it. Okay, so that is how it is now. So public cloud, it has traded the capital expenditure model into operational expenditure model. So in your on-premises, we used to have in your traditional data center, we used to have this capital expenditure model, traditional data center. And in the public cloud, we are using the public cloud operational expenditure model. So that is the primary advantage of public cloud. The second benefit that you get from public cloud is getting benefited from massive economies of scale. So that means a lot of different customers are consuming cloud. A lot of different customers are using the cloud. So there is a global scale of usage. So there are big Fortune 100 companies, Fortune 500 companies using this particular public cloud. So you are not completely owning the infrastructure there. You are not completely owning the data center there. So instead, you are sharing the resources. So when you are sharing the resources, for example, if you compare it with your real time, so if you own a real life, if you own a house, individual house, you are the one responsible for all the management, maintenance, and anything, any problems, you have to go and invest and fix it. Whereas if you are staying in a flat community or if you are in a gated community, you are sharing a lot of resources and you get the maintenance and the governance shared across the different people who are staying in that gated community. So here also it is the same. So you have a data center from Microsoft which is being shared across the different customers, and once you share it, automatically the cost comes down. So you are also getting a lot of benefits from the economies of scale. So not just that, so when more the usage, the lesser the price. That is the concept of the data center model. So if more customers are getting onboarded, the prices can drastically come down. So the next important point here is you are benefiting from the massive economies of scale. So and Microsoft has got data center across different geographical region. So if you want to, the second important point within the same second benefit is that if you want to expand your business from India to Singapore, or Singapore to Europe, or Europe to US, you have data center already present there. You don't have to really invest again to expand your business. So you just have to clone your existing application into the second region or the second data center, and it will take over from there, right? So you don't have to really um, worry about setting up a new infrastructure or data center. So here business expansion is very easy because Microsoft has got data center in almost all the regions that you could think of wherever you want to expand your business. So you already have their data center presence, and you can go and just make a copy or clone of your existing business data or application, and you can start spreading your business across the globe. And the third important point here is you don't have to really you don't have to really guess the capacity. So when it comes to the traditional IT, so this is how it used to work, right? So the business want to have an application, and the application owner will reach the infrastructure team. They will say that they need a specific amount of CPU, memory, storage, and so on. That might end up kind of over provisioning. Sometimes you might go and buy a very expensive hardware and you might not see that much of consumption or usage. Sometimes you might buy a very smaller hardware, and then your business might do very good than what you have anticipated, and there might be a lot of challenges to go and buy some more infrastructure and expand it. So here in the cloud, you don't have to really worry about the capacity. So you can keep expanding on the fly, right? So virtually you are getting unlimited capacity in the cloud. So if you want to expand, you can expand on the fly. So it's not just about CPU, memory, even any and like storage, or if you want to have better performance, you can do both levels of scaling. I would say horizontal scaling and vertical scaling. I'll come to that point. So for now, just understand this point. You don't have to really guess the capacity. So in the traditional IT world, a lot of things goes into guessing only. So you just guess like there will be 1,000 users, or there will be 100 users. So you will guess the number of users, and for which like you will be guessing the capacity. But you don't have to do that now. So you can go and understand the actual consumption, you can do the actual measurement, and you can scale your infrastructure, and you can add more capacity as and when needed. And also you can do a downscaling and upscaling both. Okay, so the next point is the speed of the business that you can make. Okay, so it is increased agility. So earlier, when a particular business application is ready, so what you generally do is you have to wait for the IT team to go and procure the hardware. You have to wait for the shipping time, and the IT team will rack and stack all the infrastructure in the data center. They have to do all the stacking. They have to do all the network connections. They have to make sure that the identity and access management is properly configured. So it goes through a cycle of maybe 3 to 6 months if you want to deploy a particular application which is already developed. But here in the cloud, if you have an application which is ready, you can just go and order the infrastructure that you need as an application owner yourself. You can go and request for this many amount of database, or you can go and ask for a particular sizing of virtual machine, and you can run your business application immediately. So the speed, the time to market of your application. When I say time to market, I'm referring to the time it takes for your application to reach the market. So if you compare it with the olden days, it used to take 4 to 6 months for your application to reach the market. But now, if you have a business application which is already prepared and ready, you can get it into the customer accessing situation within a day or two. So it's very agile. So you get a lot of opportunity to quickly deploy your application. So next important point is going global in minutes. So I already covered indirectly. So Microsoft has got data center across the globe. And if you want to expand your business application in different geographical region, you can go and clone your application into secondary region and tertiary region, and you can keep expanding it. Okay, the next point is stop spending money on maintaining your data centers. So completely in public cloud, so you don't have to really worry about the IT infrastructure. So the data center, the surveillance camera, the rack, the stack, the network connectivity, cabling, all these things are managed and maintained by the public cloud provider. So you just have to share the cost of managing and maintaining it. So public cloud provider like Microsoft, Amazon, they are managing and maintaining the data center. You just have to pay the shared cost for that. So these are the top 6 benefit you should be aware of when it comes to exam. But these are not the complete list of benefit. Okay, so I'm going to list down the other set of benefit which are equally important. Okay, let me look at the chat and see if someone else has provided any other interesting point. Okay, some of you have mentioned about high availability, high scalability. Yeah, those are all very good points. Yeah, so let's discuss those points and then I'll list down the other point. Okay, so the very first point I could see is about the scalability. Okay, so scalability, like we can think of scalability in 2 dimensions or 2 different aspects. Let me just put this way. So you can just take it as a XY axis kind of thing. So you have a business application and for which you are looking for more capacity. See, the number of users have increased, and what you want to do is you want to balance the user access to the service, and then you also want to have the users accessing the service from different server. Okay, and we call this as horizontal scaling. So we are adding more server when there are increase in workload access, or when there is increase in users, we are adding more servers to mitigate that particular performance requirement. So adding more servers is called as horizontal scaling. So we are calling it as scale out, or we can also call it as horizontal scaling. So we are adding more servers is called horizontal scaling, and also scaling in, that is also very much similar. So when your business is see, for example, in different business there will be peak times. For example, like Amazon and Flipkart is doing their big billion day sales, and there are some lot of offers that are going on, right? So definitely Amazon and Flipkart will be experiencing very high number of users for these 4-5 days, because the offers and the specific advertisements is making more people to hit their application or website, and there will be more usage. So during this particular peak time, we will add more servers to mitigate that particular requirement. And once after the sales are done or complete, then the user access will become to normal. So during that time, you have to reduce the number of servers. So for example, currently, if you are saying like you have 10 servers, so during these business peak times, you will go and expand it to 50 servers or 100 servers. And after the peak time is done or complete, you will reduce the number of servers. So you can do it either during the off business hours or the business hours on the same day, or you can also do horizontal scaling for a particular number of days or a particular month, and so on. So adding more servers is called scale out. Okay, reducing the number of servers is called scale in. Okay, both are horizontal scaling. So we are adding and reducing the number of servers. Okay, so this is scale in. Scale in means we are reducing the number of servers. So when the peak load is done, we will reduce the number of servers, right? So that is what we call it as, okay, horizontal scaling. So there is one more dimension to this, which we call it as scale up and scale down. See, for example, if you think about databases especially, okay, so database servers, it is having a kind of server bound licensing or software licensing is there. So you cannot just like that go and add more servers like your web server or application server. See, web server doesn't have server bound licenses. You can go and add more IIS servers or Apache servers or Tomcat servers. It is like mostly like those are all not tied to any licenses. But then when it comes to database server, you cannot just like that go and add more servers. Like horizontal scaling is not a suitable candidate for such SAP servers or database servers. And for those servers, what we generally do is we go and add more CPU, memory, storage on the same server hardware. So that is called scale up. Adding more computing resources or adding more CPU, memory, and storage on the same server hardware is called scale up. So this is vertical scaling. So vertical scaling means you are adding more capacity, CPU, memory, storage on the same server hardware. This is primarily because of the nature of the application. Like for the database servers and for those workload, we cannot go and just add more servers because it is bound to licenses. We cannot just like that do that. But then for the web servers and application servers, we can definitely do horizontal scaling. So adding more resources on the same hardware is called scale up, and then reducing the number of resources on the same hardware is called scaling down. So in public cloud, the horizontal scaling can be automated, which means you can do a auto scaling of the increase in servers and the decrease in servers. Whereas for scale up and down, you have to go and change the instance size, for which the downtime is needed for most of the cases. Okay, so in scalability, there is a concept called auto scaling that is applicable for horizontal scaling. So when there is increase in demand, you can go and add more servers, and then you can reduce the number of servers if the demand has come down. So scalability means adding more servers, adding more capacity. That is what we call it as scalability. And the next point that I saw in the chat is high availability, right? So when it comes to high availability, so Microsoft has given you a lot of options to increase the service level agreement or SLA commitment. So you can go with either multiple data center. If you go and do a design, you can have your business application running on multiple data centers, or you can also go and run it in multiple regions, or you can also keep them on multiple racks. Multiple rack means I'm talking about multiple server rack. So you can design in such a way that it is not increasing your cost. Some application might have some budget, right? All the application definitely will have budget, and not all the application will have lot of consumption, right? So based on the application criticality, based on the application consumption, you can go and design your application. See here, when I say multiple server rack, Microsoft has got a term called availability set. We will be discussing this in very details, but for now, I'm just giving a high level understanding. So if you want to have your multiple servers or multiple web server or application having high availability, you can, if you have 3 servers for an example, you can have those 3 servers in 3 different server racks, so that if one server rack has power issue, or if one server is having issue, or one network switch is experiencing outage, so the other 2 servers running on the other 2 racks will be available for the customers. Okay, so that is how you are ensuring high availability when there is a outage on a specific server hardware or network or on a specific rack. And if you want to have your application running on multiple data center, so they have a term called availability zone, through which you can run your applications on multiple servers in multiple data center. You can also go and run your application on different geographical region, so that even if there is a major disaster on a particular region, like a natural disaster or a man-made disaster, your application will continue to be accessible from the second region. So you can have your data center in different data center, different rack, or different region, and it is all based on your criticality and the importance of your application. So we will decide on that based on the SLA commitment that you are going to give to the customer. So if you are saying like I want to give 99.95, so you have to design your application accordingly. We will have a detailed session on what are the different options that are available. There are some more options like placement group and so on. I don't want to confuse you on the very first day, but I'll talk about this on maybe 4th or 5th day of session. So definitely you have a lot of options to improve the availability of your application in public cloud provider, right? So indirectly, like why you need to have your servers running in different rack, different data center or different region. It is mainly to have increased uptime, right? That is the expectation, increased uptime, and sometimes it is also increased performance and so on. So you get your application access from different hardware, different networks, so the performance will be much better, right? So any other point you feel you have missed? So I've picked all these points from the chat. Okay, so there are a few more points that I can list down, but any specific questions or any specific points that you want to add? Okay, yeah, security, right? So security is a very interesting point, Ganesh. So it depends, right? So some people will say security is not up to the mark in public cloud. Some people will say like security is the biggest concern. So there is a big discussion that we have to do on that, but I'll come to that point. So there are some advantages and disadvantages around that. Okay, so let me start listing down the points that I want to list here. Okay, let me do that. So here, the next point that I want to talk about is the self-service portal or the single sign-on portal. Can you explain scale out, scale in and scale out, and scale up and down in one line? Okay, so here, horizontal scaling is increasing or decreasing servers resources based on the requirement. Like I would say increasing or decreasing the server or virtual machine, I would say, in the cloud. Whereas vertical scaling is increasing resources, CPU, memory, storage, and so on, etc. on the same hardware. It can be storage hardware or server hardware. So this is what we call it as scale up or down, whereas horizontal scaling is scale out. You are adding more servers. So increasing is adding, right? Scale out. Whereas if you want to scale in, that means it is decreasing. Okay, that's what I told here, right, in the diagram also. So if you're adding more servers, that is called horizontal scaling, scale out. And if you're reducing the number of servers, if when the peak usage is not there, then that is called the scale in. You are reducing the number of servers. Scale up is adding more CPU memory on the same server hardware. When there is not much usage, you can also go and downsize it, or we go and do a right sizing, right? So in cloud, you can do it on the fly. So that elasticity is there. Okay, so whenever you want more capacity, you can go and increase it. Whenever you want to reduce the capacity, you can do it. So that's the thing, right? Even if you look at Amazon services names, they call everything with elastic, right? They say elastic compute cloud, elastic IP address, elastic network adapter. The reason is you can go and increase, decrease, attach, detach. It is more flexible. Okay, so flexibility is very high in public cloud. Even in Microsoft Azure, it's the same thing. Yeah. For scale out, whether we will be increasing server virtually. Yes, we will add more servers. In scale out, we will add more virtual servers or virtual machines. That is correct. Okay, so okay, let's continue where we left. Okay, so here I was about to tell about the self-service portal or the single sign-on portal. Earlier, when Microsoft introduced Microsoft Azure, so the name was different. Okay, so they called it as Windows Azure earlier. In 2010, when Azure was launched, it was called as Windows Azure, and predominantly it was all Microsoft related products that was made available. But public cloud should have it should be cloud agnostic, or it should be OS agnostic and platform agnostic. So they have to provide whatever that is in demand from the customers, or like whatever customers is demanding. So what they did is they rebranded from Windows Azure to Microsoft Azure. So the reason I'm talking about this topic here, earlier when they launched it, they used to have different portal for different stuff. So they used to have develop.azure.com. So here is where the developers will log in, and then manage.windowsazure.com is where the administrators will log in, and so on. There will be a lot of different website or portal which will be there for managing and developing application. So that is not a good practice, right? So we need to have one single portal through which you should be able to do each and every action item. So currently, if you want to do something, you can just type portal.azure.com. Either you are a developer or an administrator, or you are a FinOps engineer or a DevOps engineer. You have one single portal or one self-service portal through which you can manage it. Okay, if there is a question, yeah, you can unmute yourself. I have just muted the line to avoid the noise there. Okay, in which situation they will go for vertical horizontal modeling? Okay, so I think there are still questions around the scalability. So as I told you, horizontal scaling is very good for servers like web servers, app servers. There is no licensing attached to it. You can add more servers as you need. In the front end, I would say for the front end, mostly it is horizontal scaling. In the back end, I would say it is vertical scaling. For example, database servers, it has got server-bound licensing, Oracle licensing, Microsoft SQL licensing. It is very costly. Microsoft Exchange servers. So those are all backend systems, right? For the backend systems, like the database, Exchange mailing, and so on, mostly it is all vertical scaling because of the licensing, server-bound license or software-bound license. That is making the customers to go with vertical scaling. Okay, hopefully I answered that question on the chat. Okay, let me do one thing. I think you guys are not able to see each other's name, right? So you might be seeing just attendees. Let me do one thing here in order to make this little more interesting. Just give me a second. Okay, let me stop sharing. Let me go and okay. So from now on, you will be able to see the names of the people who are asking the questions or who are chatting. Okay, fine. So now let's continue with these points. So any questions before we move on? I see some of you are coming out of mute.
Yeah, Stan, myself,
Yeah.
Surendra. Yeah. See, actually, means about it's a means so if the user in trying to connect somewhere from global, maybe somewhere from
Mhm.
France or US. Okay, so if we having the applications deployed in different geographical area, so will the cloud can able to means divert the traffic, maybe the network part or somewhere. So for example, the France
Mhm.
user, they are trying to reach some application which is in uh, globally it is located, so but the traffic is coming to India. Okay, so the near to France, so maybe we can divert the traffic to Germany or somewhere. Okay, so the cloud can do that.
Yeah, yeah. So there are a lot of features that you can use to do that. Okay, so since that was a good question, like even though it's not in the list of points that we thought of discussing, I'll help you with that. See, there are
Yeah.
DNS based routing, or you can also go with like tools which can redirect, like Microsoft Azure has got Traffic Manager, which is a solution that will redirect the traffic based on the origin or based on the country from where you are trying to access. So when the request is coming from a particular IP range or from a particular geographical region, automatically this traffic manager will redirect the traffic to that particular application hosted on that particular location or country. So there are a lot of services like that, and there are other services like um, you can go for third-party tie-up, where you can also have some caching, and we'll discuss more when we are discussing about app service and so on. But for your question, yes, Microsoft Azure has got DNS based routing. They have this option within their Azure DNS feature, and also you have Traffic Manager, which can also do that. And even to certain extent, the global accelerator or the load balancers can also do that. But Traffic Manager is a DNS based load balancer, I would say. Since your question is
Okay.
more about different geography, different country, so the solution should be Traffic Manager. Yes, traffic management can be done.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Any other question from anyone before we move on?
Stan, it's Mr. Stan.
Yeah.
So it's something I'm having doubt in scalability and the auto scaling
Yeah.
regarding the scale. As you said, it can be done virtually. The server can be added, right? So do we? Do we have any? Do the Microsoft is having any tool to increase the server, like software tools or anything to increase the server?
Yes. So I'll just give you a high level update on that. See, when it comes to auto scaling, so AWS has got a feature called AWS auto scaling. It is pretty straightforward. The name is the same. Whereas in Microsoft Azure, we call it as virtual machine scale set. Okay, VMSS. So VMSS stands for virtual machine scale set. So what the operations team or the application DevOps team does is, like, they will have a image that will be up to date with patches, the software code and all those things, right? So this image will be used for provisioning the servers when there is increase in the number of users or increase in the traffic. When there is a high network consumption, there will be the servers will automatically increase, and when the consumption is less, the servers will be decommissioned automatically. So you will have an image that will be referenced to add the servers and reduce the servers. So virtual machine scale set is a feature from Microsoft Azure that will do the magic for you. So you don't have to really do anything. You can go and say, I want to have at least minimum 3 servers for my application. You can also say, like, my desired state configuration, I want at least 4 servers to be available all the time. And you can also say, in order to stay within the budget, or for example, there are chances that your application might be hacked, or your server might be hacked, and your servers will start proliferating, right? Your servers can get increased. So in order to stop that part, you can say my horizontal scaling or auto scaling can go up to 10 servers. You can also have it as unlimited, but then this is primarily to avoid any unexpected charges or cost. So you can stay within the budget. So there is a feature. We'll also see this in practical in maybe 6th or 7th day of session. We'll see how virtual machine scale set will help you to do the auto scaling. We have a practical demonstration on that.
Okay, Stan.
Yep. Any other question?
Can you explain this global accelerator once again? I missed it.
No. Don't get into that part, because like I just answered it, right? So they said, I mean, there was a question where
Oh,
they asked, right? I forgot the name, but yeah. So he asked whether there is any feature from Microsoft Azure which can redirect the users based on their geographical origin. Like if someone is accessing from India, their request should go to India region data center. Similarly, if someone is accessing from UK, their request should go to London data center. And for which there are multiple different services from Microsoft Azure, like Traffic Manager, DNS-based routing, Global Accelerator, and so on, which can help to connect to different services that are hosted across the globe without much latency or performance issues. So we will see those things or discuss those things in very high details. I just answered to his question. So the service name is Traffic Manager for his question, or like even you can use DNS based routing for the same requirement. If Traffic Manager is a high cost solution, they can also try to do that using DNS based routing.
Okay,
Hi,
thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
no problem.
this
Yeah,
is Krishna.
yes,
Uh, we discussed about public cloud, right? There will be
yeah,
a private cloud also, right? We didn't discuss here anything regarding
yes,
that.
yes. So there are different deployment models in cloud, right? So we'll be talking about that in an hour from now. Okay, if possible today, or we might have to discuss it tomorrow. So yeah, definitely there are different offering: public cloud, private cloud, hybrid cloud, and so on. So in private cloud, Microsoft also has got Azure Stack, which is similar to your OpenStack or your AWS Outposts and so on. So I'll talk about that later. So, but whatever examinations that I was referring, right? AC 900, AC 700, AC 104, that is all related to public cloud, your Microsoft Azure public cloud offering. Even there will be one or two questions from the private cloud specific thing. Yeah, we'll discuss that shortly. Yeah. Okay, any other question from anyone else? Okay. So I've got some calls to check. Okay, I'll go and check that. Meanwhile, we'll take a 10 minutes break and then we'll continue our session. Okay, so any questions before we go for the break? Okay, if not, I'll start the timer. Okay, let's take a 10 minutes break and then we'll come back.
This conference will now be recorded.
So any questions before we move? Okay, I'll take that as no and let's start. Okay, so we were talking like these are the top 6 benefits of cloud, right? Trading the capital expenditure into operational expenditure and benefiting from massive economies of scale, stop guessing capacity, agility, going global in minutes, and stop spending money in maintaining and running the data center. So when it comes to exam, so these are the key points that you should be thinking about, and these are all some additional benefits that you get. And some of you have mentioned about cost in the chat, right? So when it comes to cost, there is definitely a lot of total cost of ownership reduction. Definitely the cloud is much cheaper, I would say. Okay, so when it comes to cloud, you can see that there is a reduced total cost of ownership, and I'll help you out how there is a reduced cost of ownership there. Okay, so when you talk about cloud, so as I said, we don't have to really manage and maintain the physical infrastructure, the data center. So it is being managed and maintained by the cloud provider. Here in our case, Microsoft, right? So when you think about data center, a lot of things has to be taken into consideration. So you have to think about where to build your data center. You have to think about the location, real estate, the facility, and then you also need to understand your customer base, what kind of SLA they are looking at from your side, how much uptime they are expecting for their application, and so on. And on top of that, there might be different customers expecting their application to run on different diversified hardware. So not everyone will expect the same x86 platform, or there might be some customers migrating their mainframe workload, SAP workload, and different kind of workload towards the public cloud. So you need to be ready with all heterogeneous hardware, heterogeneous databases, and so on. So public cloud provider definitely provides a lot of different options to choose from. So you can get a lot of flexibility on what you need. You can go and choose the operating system of your choice, database of your choice. But here in the cloud, if you think about building a data center, it is taken care by Microsoft. You don't have to really worry about it. So Microsoft has already decided on the location. They have already purchased the real estate. But if you are doing that, it is a very time consuming thing, and it is also a very tricky thing. I would say data center location itself is a kind of a tricky option to choose. For example, if I'm a customer, or if I'm a IT provider and I want to run my data center, what I will look at is these key element. Okay, I have to think whether the location is having enough network bandwidth, whether the real estate is within my budget, and also there are a lot of other factors that should be considered when you go and build a data center. For example, if I'm not sure, like if you have thought about this particular thing, in India itself, you will see a lot of data centers in Chennai, Hyderabad, Bangalore, and the southern part of India. The reason is you have the internet connection hub in Chennai, Mumbai, and these locations are having a lot of facility to connect overseas. Okay, that is one of the reason. And the disaster, when it comes to natural disaster, so the northern part of India is prone to earthquake. There are a lot of chances that the IT equipments might fail very frequently because of the seismic zone. So that's the reason why the northern part of India doesn't have a lot of data center, because of the seismic zone. So and again, you cannot go and create or build a data center in middle of the city, right? So definitely the real estate cost will be very high. So you have to think about the location, real estate, facility that you get in terms of network and so on. And then you before even building the data center, you have to think about all these things. And the next thing is the level of data center. I'm not sure how many of you have heard about the different levels of data center. So level 1 data center is a kind of a basic one, and a lot of data centers are level 3 or level 3 plus when it comes to Microsoft or Amazon. Their data centers are even tier 4 or level 4 category. So when I say tier 4 or tier 3 category, those are all very high tier data center. It gives you a lot of high availability. So when you talk about the tier 1 data center, there are a lot of components which are prone to single point of failure. And the level 2 data centers, or the tier 2 data centers, will have n+1 availability. So there will be at least one more extra component that is available to mitigate the failure. So there won't be single point of failure. So here, single point of failure are more common. But in level 3, you will have redundancy in all the aspect. When I say all the aspect, you will have multiple network connections from multiple different vendor, like Orange or Airtel, or different network providers will give you network connection. Similarly, like you will get different electricity in inlet. For example, you might get power from electrical grid, you might get power from nuclear, you might get from solar, and different options like wind power, raw power, and so on. So power, network, electricity, all these things will have multiple redundancy. And similarly, there will be a lot of different hardware racks and stuffs available to balance the availability. You will have a lot of battery backup, UPS generators to maintain the environment. And on top of that, so there are a lot of things that keeps going in a data center, right? We have to take care of the power, we have to take care of the cooling infrastructure, surveillance cameras, and whatever and comes to authentication. All those things has to be set up. And this is a never-ending list, right? So you have to purchase a lot of servers, storage, network, and so on. So all these items are offloaded now. So you don't have to really worry about buying or building a data center, managing a data center, maintaining a data center. All these are offshore, or all these are being done by the provider. Here, Microsoft is going to take care of managing the physical infrastructure. Physical data center is completely managed and maintained by them. Okay, so even there is a lot of manpower that is needed, right, in order to do the racking, stacking, cabling, do the server hardware fix or firmware upgrade. So all these things, there is a lot of manpower that is needed. So all these are kind of made available for us as a service, right? So that is the next topic that we are going to head towards. But so when you talk about cost, okay, so these kind of costs are shared between customers. So that's why we call public cloud is comparatively cheaper compared to your private cloud or your on-premises data center. But on-premises data center and the private cloud has got a lot of legal security compliance benefit, but public cloud has got a lot of cost savings because of the nature on how we go with the shared pool of resources, or how we do the sharing between different customers. Okay, so that's what we were discussing about cost. Okay, any questions on this part? If you guys are not clear with the level of data center, see, for example, if you go and browse the internet websites, so if you go and see, check ControlX data center, which is one of the top data center in the Asia, right? So Asia's largest G4 data centers. So it gives you 99.995% of availability. So many ControlX data centers are in Asia, and especially in India, there are a lot of data centers in Hyderabad, Bangalore, and other locations. So what you can do is you can go and take a data center tour here. You can also request for a physical visit also. You can just go and look at how they are providing 99.995 of availability. So it is available in Hyderabad, Bangalore, Mumbai, and Noida. So these are all tier 4 rated data center. Okay, so they are the Asia's largest rated 4 data center. Earlier, SIFI and different companies used to provide it. Even Reliance has got data center, but ControlX has got a lot of high rating. So when they say rated 4, that means they have got at least N+3 availability. So when they are able to give N+3 availability, their SLA will also be as good as that. So it will be 99.995. So I'll talk about this SLA and how to achieve these availability in Microsoft Azure data center in a later stage. But if you have not visited a physical data center, you can definitely have a look into the ControlX data center. So you can go through the data center tool. It gives you a very good idea on how the data center looks like. It is a like maybe 5 to 6 minute video, and you can also go and look at this particular site, which will give you a little more better understanding on how the rating is being done for the data centers. So most of the Microsoft data centers and Amazon data centers are rated 4, which means they have N+3 availability on each and every component: network, power, electricity, all those, network, electricity, and even the server resources and so on. Yeah, go ahead. There is a question.
Yeah, Stan, actually, I just want to know the one thing about the cloud. Okay, so
Yeah.
the cloud, it's about an application which will be running on some hardware. So if, the customers will be using the services which is provided by the cloud, means the Azure or AWS or anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in that case, so again, the end of the day, the machine, it will be as a physical machine. So even it is a cloud, so the data center, it will contain the physical machine, right? Okay, so the what kind of physical hardware they will be using? So it will be means the own build uh, Microsoft means hardware or something, some other hardware. What kind of hardware they will be using to
Mm-hmm.
deploy this kind of cloud services?
Okay, so I'll take that as the full question. Okay, so
Yeah.
now to answer your question, okay, so you
Understand?
asked
I
about.
have another question also related to that, and also
Mhm.
which hypervisor they are using for build the VMs.
Okay, Kumar, sure. Okay, let me answer both of them. Okay, so there was question like the first question I will rephrase. Okay, so he was asking, even though it is someone else data center, again it is all physical server, physical storage, physical network, and so on. And if that is the case, and what kind of devices or what kind of manufacturer they are using is what is the first question. And then the second question was what kind of virtualization platform that the providers are using, right? So that actually gives an indirect answer to the first question. Okay, so most of the applications that we are running, it is on virtual machine. Okay, so without virtualization, cloud will not be should not be a success actually. So without virtualization, definitely cloud might have been a failure. So when I say virtualization, so one of the top vendor is VMware, right? So VMware was the one who introduced virtualization on x86 hardware. So even though the virtualization concept is there for the last 40-50 years, IBM used to have, SAP used to have, but then they did not come to the commodity or like the x86 platform hardware. So after VMware started providing virtualization related benefit, what is virtualization? Virtualization is to run multiple application on the same hardware on different operating systems. So you can just say you can run multiple VM or multiple virtual machine on the same physical hardware, right? So this is primarily to save a lot of cost, as well as you get a lot of benefits of see, earlier, before virtualization, what we used to do is we used to have a particular single business application. That single app will be installed on a particular single hardware, single server hardware, we'll say. Okay, so I'm talking about maybe 2000 or before that. Okay, so after year 2000, okay, this VMware technology started evolving. So initially they came up with something like GSX or VMware server, where it used to be a kind of operating system hypervisor, where we need to have a base OS like Linux or some Windows. And top of that, we go and install the software, and we used to run virtual machines. But then now you are started getting direct hypervisors, which are purpose-built virtualization operating system. And if you have a single server hardware, you can start running multiple VMs in parallel. Okay, the reason of virtualization, or like I would say, like why there is a need for virtualization, if there is a question like that, at that time in the year 2000, if you are going and purchasing a single hardware, we used to get server hardware with maybe I would say 8 GB memory and I would say like 4 CPU and so on. Okay, it used to be, capacity used to be very less, even when it comes to operating system storage or the data. We used to have 80 GB or 100 GB storage kind of thing. That is very common for each and every server. But like I'm just taking a rough example, but even you can the capacity might be a little more higher also. It might be 32 GB at that time itself, but I'm just giving a quote unquote example. But if you think of technology that is available in the market now, one single hardware comes with terabytes of memory capacity, and then petabytes of storage options available, and then the CPU cores are very high. But if you're going and purchasing that single hardware and running single application on that hardware, it is going to be a lot of wastage of resources, and in turn, it is lot of money is going off waste, right? If you're running one, if you're using one purpose-built hardware for one application, it is not going to work out with the current hardware revolution or where we are currently. So we have got a lot of capacity on a single hardware. So definitely customers want to make full use of that particular hardware. And in order to do that, on the hardware, we go and install this virtualization operating system. We call it as hypervisor. And once you install the hypervisor on the server hardware, you can run multiple virtual machine on the same physical hardware. Okay, so the answer to the first question is we are not using a physical server to a larger extent, but you do have option to go and ask for dedicated host or dedicated instance, you can also request that in public cloud. That option is there, but 90% of the workload are running on virtual machine. So it's like a VM or a virtual server or a virtual instance, I can say. Okay, so it has got its own independent operating system.
Stanley, I have a small doubt.
Yeah, let me complete, and then I think it will confuse more if I accept more questions. But yeah, stay patient for 1 or 2 minutes. Let me complete that, and then we'll ask that question. So
Yeah, sure.
yeah. So most of the workload in public cloud Azure is virtual machine, 90%, I would say, 90 to 95%. Only 5 to 10% of the workload are physical servers, or you are getting dedicated hardware. That is primarily to meet up some legal compliance requirement or security requirement for your application. You go and get that dedicated host. Some of your application has that requirement that it should not run on a shared hardware, so you go and get a dedicated hardware. So most of the workload are running on a virtual machine. So you will have multiple virtual machine on the same hardware, because the hardware technology has evolved, and you have to definitely make full use of the hardware. So that is what virtualization benefit is, right? You are making full use of the hardware resources that you are getting. So in the same hardware, instead of running one single application, what you are doing now, you are running 20 to 30 different virtual machine on the same physical, on single hardware. So they are all concurrently running. It's not dual boot kind of thing. You are running multiple virtual machine on single hardware. So you are fully utilizing the hardware resources there. And the next question that he asked is about what kind of manufacturer that they are choosing. See, when it comes to manufacturer, definitely Microsoft was not a hardware manufacturer at the beginning. So they were definitely doing some mobiles or laptops or tablets. Those things they used to manufacture, but on the server side of house, they did not do at the beginning. But if you ask currently, they have started doing that. Okay, see, if you are going and purchasing and kind of renting it, it's going to be a lot of revenue for the for the physical hardware manufacturer. Instead, if you are doing in-house, that's what Amazon is doing, right? Amazon is manufacturing A to Z, and they are giving it. Instead, if you are buying and giving it, there will be only margin that you will be getting. Okay, for example, if you are buying hardware from HP or Dell or EMC or whatever, so you will get only the margin of benefit from that if you're doing a kind of resales, or if you're doing that. But initially, that is what was happening. Microsoft has a kind of mechanism on how they used to choose a particular provider on a particular region. They did not have a common manufacturer across the globe. For example, in Asian market, if Hitachi is doing good in storage market, if they are giving you quick spare parts, or if they are having a better SLA, or if they are giving better availability performance, they go for that. And if in another region, if Dell EMC is doing better, they will go for that for server or storage or whatever. So they had a criteria, they had a mechanism to choose different vendors in different region. And it was they were not specific to a particular manufacturer. They used to buy whoever is doing better in that particular market, because they have to mutually have a better agreement and provide business applications. I mean, they have to meet out the uptime or the SLA requirement, right? But now things have changed, things have evolved. Microsoft themselves have started manufacturing their own processes or hardware. They have started assembling a lot of things. Okay, so they have their own server hardware coming out of Microsoft, Amazon, and Google factories nowadays. But it was not the case 10-15 years back. It used to be kind of resale, or they used to kind of having a tie-up with different vendors for server, storage, network, and so on. But in many cases, they have started doing in-house assembling or in-house manufacturing, so that they get the full revenue benefit out of it. So the next question that I heard from Surendra, I guess, so he was asking what is the hypervisor that is being used in public cloud. So when it comes to Microsoft Azure, they predominantly use Hyper-V, which is their own in-house hypervisor. right? Hyper-V is there. Microsoft own virtualization operating system, hypervisor, and they are also offering like Azure VMware solution, which is a kind of tie-up. But in Microsoft Azure direct platform, it is predominantly Hyper-V. You also have option like to use VMware and open source, but it is very less. And in your private cloud, definitely you have options, much more flexibility. When it comes to Amazon, they have their own option. Earlier, they used to have customized Zen in AWS. Okay, so and then they started using KVM, and then currently Amazon has got their own hypervisor, which is called Nitro hypervisor, and they are also supporting VMware on AWS. So it's like if you ask Microsoft, it is Hyper-V predominantly, and if you ask Amazon as on date, it is predominantly Nitro hypervisor. But it is still, I would say 30-40% is still on Zen, KVM, and then a few percentages on VMware also. So that's the answer for those three questions. See, to continue with where I started, without virtualization, cloud might have been a failure, I would say, because a lot of benefits came from virtualization. Because of this hypervisor, you are able to run multiple virtual machine on the same hardware. When you run your virtual machine, it's like a folder. Your business application is hosted on a virtual operating system. So you have a lot of portability, you have a lot of flexibility. You can easily take backup, you can easily clone the VM, you can take snapshots. So it's like there is a lot of flexibility, easy to manage, easy to move. You get better availability because of the HA, high availability, and DRS features that is there in virtualization. So it is easy to maintain, it is easy to upgrade, it is easy to patch. So a lot of benefits, I would say 50% of the benefit that you see in the cloud came from virtualization. So, and without virtualization, cloud might not have been a success like where we are seeing it now. Okay, so I've answered partially, but there are a lot of things that we will continue to discuss in the next upcoming session. I hope I answered to a certain extent all those three questions.
Yeah, it's done. Yes.
Okay, so
Thank
let's listen to the other question someone started asking. Yeah, I'm open for the other question now. You have to unmute yourself. Someone, I think Therikumar, I answered your question, right? You asked about the hypervisor, which virtualization technology we are using.
Yes,
I've
Stan.
answered it. Okay.
Yeah, clear. Yeah.
Stan, good evening, Balamurugan here. I have
Yes,
a
yes.
question. So you said like that hypervisor, right? So we can run multiple VMwares on the single hardware, right? So it is like multiple. Maybe this could be basic. So multiple VMwares instance, they can be of individual OS, and they can have different platforms, right? So that's
Correct.
where it means, right? Okay.
Correct. So
And
see, that is
one single,
that is the advantage of virtualization. To complete your answer that you said, right? So with virtualization, even though the hardware is x86 hardware, 32-bit hardware, you can run 32-bit operating system VM, right? And then even you can have 64-bit operating systems running. In most of the physical hardware nowadays, 32-bit operating systems are not at all supported, right? Because the technology has changed to 64-bit at the hardware level. You cannot run 32-bit directly on that 64-bit hardware. But whereas in virtualization, you still have flexibility to have 32-bit OS, 64-bit OS. You can have Windows VM running on the same hardware. In parallel, you can also have Linux VM. So it's like a lot of flexibility is there. You can, if you have 20 VMs on the same hardware, some of them can be Red Hat Linux, SUSE Linux, Windows VM, and so on. Yeah, you can run them
and they
parallelly on
can
the same hardware.
and they can be monitored in the single hypervisor, like kind of ILOM they used to say, right? ILOM or a single GUI. They can monitor all of them in one single window.
Okay, so that is different. See, maintaining the infrastructure or managing the infrastructure is being taken care by the provider. Okay, monitoring or maintaining, managing the server infrastructure is, or server hardware is with the provider, Microsoft. So whatever you said, right? HP has got ILO, and then Dell has got DRAC, Dell Remote Access Control. Similarly, RSA is there with IBM and so on. So these are all modules through which you can remotely connect to the physical hardware, and you can also monitor the different physical components like CPU, memory, storage, battery, and so on. But that is all taken care by Microsoft. We are not doing that. We are not having that access, and we don't take care of that. It is a kind of managed service. So here,
But what
if you're
is then
talking about your
hypervisor
app,
means actually?
hypervisor is a purpose-built virtualization operating system. See, if you are going and
Okay.
running, so it's a purpose-built virtualization OS, which enables you to create VMs on a single hardware. See, if you're running Linux OS by default, it does not allow you to create multiple VMs. You have to enable that virtualization feature either on Windows or Linux, and then you go and start running that. That feature of enabling virtualization, so I would say operating system enabled with virtualization feature is called hypervisor.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So it's a purpose-built virtualization OS. Yeah. Okay, I know like we slightly distracted from our topic, but it is a very good question. All questions are welcome. So whatever we discussed is very important. Any other questions?
Yes, Sam. So my question is on the cost part. Okay, like I just want to ask it put it this way. As of today, is cloud always a cheaper option, or it's still something which can be debatable? Like let's just say we have a small or a medium-sized business which might not need a high availability feature, might not need a load balancer behind it. They can take a bit of downtime. So won't an on-prem setup still be cheaper for them than a cloud setup? Or you still believe that on today's date, cloud is always going to be cheaper, irrespective of what you do?
No, I won't claim that. I won't claim that cloud is always cheaper. There are definitely surprises that we might see, especially as you said. It all depends on how we are designing our application based on the customer requirement. If we are going and creating a design, whereas customer is only expecting 99.95 and we are designing the environment for 99.99, it is definitely a increase in cost, and it is a design flaw or a mistake. And in cloud especially, we tend to go and enable features or services that might not be really needed. For example, I would take a classical example. We might have a business application that is not at all internet facing, okay, but then there you will see a lot of solutioning on the internet, or you will see a lot of documentation. It says you have a web application firewall, or you have what you call guard duty, or different prevention I mean intrusion prevention or intrusion detection service, or you might also see a lot of security features that can uh, bring in a lot of guardrails to your application and so on. So generally what people does is they go and just enable it in a click of a button. Okay, they will say enable shield, or enable high protection. With that single click, it will include, or it will add up $500 of money for single application. And maybe sometimes if you are enabling a better protection, it might cost you $1,000 also. So but that application is really not facing internet. It's a kind of internal intranet application within the cloud, where it is just connecting to the front end, or to your on-premises corporate network. And when you're doing the design, we might end up choosing a lot of features, services, and as you said, availability designing might become a overkill, or you might do a over provisioning, or it will end up with overspending. So I won't say always it is cheaper. At times, based on the requirements, you need to do a proper designing. There are a lot of chances that you might end up enabling a lot of stuff which is not really needed by the customer. So that's what we are going to discuss. Okay, we are going to discuss the different features and services that are available, and we'll understand where they are really needed, and that's where we need to be proper in doing the design part. But yeah, for your question, I would say it's not always cheaper. Majority of the case, I would say we can design in such a way it is cheaper compared to your on-premises consumption.
Perfect. We can
Okay.
go ahead.
Yeah. Let's not discuss too much on the disadvantage for now. We will focus on the benefits as of now, and then we'll get into that maybe today, end of the session, or tomorrow. Yeah, I think we are already at 7:40. We have a few more minutes. Okay, let's do one thing. Let's talk about one more small topic today. We'll talk about the cloud service model, because a lot of questions should have not come if we have discussed that now. Okay, so let's do that. So cloud service model. Here we have 3 different categories. Okay, cloud service model can be subdivided into infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and then software as a service. So whatever we saw, right, the virtual machine and those part, it is mostly about the infrastructure as a service, and we call it as IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS, right? So your virtual machine, virtual storage, those are classical example of infrastructure as a service. So when it comes to an IT infrastructure, you have different layers, right? You have your hardware layer, which comprises of networking. It has got storage, and then it has got servers, and including the hypervisor, which is your virtualization OS. So this infrastructure is being managed and provided as a service. Okay, so that's what we call it as infrastructure as a service. In infrastructure as a service category, all these things are being serviced or are being managed by the provider. So provider here is Microsoft, right? In Microsoft Azure, infrastructure as a service category, service provider manages the infrastructure. So here, if you think of infrastructure as a service, so what does that mean? So if there is a issue on your server, if there is a CPU error, or if there is a memory failure, or if there is a storage disk failure, or if you want to upgrade the firmware, or if you want to replace the hardware, the infrastructure servicing, the infrastructure is being managed and maintained by the service provider. That's what we call it as infrastructure as a service. So we don't have to really worry about the physical infrastructure, including the hypervisor operating system in infrastructure as a service model. But as a customer, we have to manage certain things there. What are the things that we need to manage? We need to manage the operating system, the virtual machine OS, and then we have to take care of the middleware database or application that we are installing to run your application, and the runtime, the data, and then the apps or customer responsibility. So we need to take care of these areas in infrastructure as a service. In infrastructure as a service model, as a customer, we are responsible for patching the OS, monitoring the virtual machine, and then taking backup of your virtual machine and so on, or fixing any errors or issues coming on your operating system is customer responsibility. Microsoft doesn't have access on the virtual machine OS. They have access only on these layers. Okay, so these layers are being managed and maintained by Microsoft. So if there are some issues on network storage or hypervisor or networking, they will Microsoft will take care of it. So here it is Microsoft. So as a service consumer, either it can be a service provider or a third party can manage your environment, or the actual service consumer, like the customer, can directly manage these things. Okay, so few more things are there, especially when it comes to public cloud. People are confused with the shared responsibility model. Okay, so irrespective of on-premises or infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, or software as a service, any issues that is happening on the identity level. So customer has the full rights to create identity, and they are the one who need to manage who should have access to which application, which operating system, and then they manage the accounts identities. And the second thing, they manage the devices that connect to the cloud. Your mobile will have applications that can connect to public cloud. Your PC can have desktop application that can connect to business applications running on cloud. So the identity, account, devices, application, data, runtime, middleware, virtual machine OS, these are all customer responsibility when it comes to infrastructure as a service model. Okay, when it comes to platform as a service model, the provider will take care of little more additional things. Okay, let me do one thing. Let me insert. So here, including the platform. Okay, so the infrastructure plus the platform. Platform is until this runtime. So all these things are managed by service provider. Service provider is going to manage both infrastructure as well as the platform for your application. So your application might need a specific Java runtime, or it might need .NET, or it might need some different runtime for your application. So all those can be provided as a service. So here the infrastructure, the VM operating system, and the platform is being taken care by the provider.
Means including patching, monitoring, and backup also for this one.
True, yes. So including patching, monitoring, backup of your virtual machine operating system, including the middleware, database, and so on, is also being managed by the provider. Just a second, let me take some water.
Okay, and in IAS, like the patching, monitoring, and backup, that's also we can customize, right, using the Azure native tools for this monitoring, backup, and else we can use on-prem also, right?
Okay, so definitely hybrid options are supported. You can use the same tool. For example, you can use SCCM or MECM to patch, or like BigFix, IBM BigFix, or any tool for patching both machines running on public cloud as well as on your on-premises data center. You can use the same tooling to monitor, to patch, to backup, to all whatever managed services you want to do. You can use the same tooling. Yeah, that is fine. Yeah, that is possible.
Which is applicable in the first model, right? IAS model, right?
Correct. Yeah, wherever customer is responsible, yeah, we can do that. Yes. So
Okay.
continuing on this one, let me pick up these things. So in platform as a service model, so as a customer, we are responsible for identity, accounts, devices. When I say devices, the client devices that we use to connect to the cloud, and also you are responsible for application as well as the data. In platform as a service also, the data has to be taken care by customer. Okay, so let me pick this one here. Service consumer, this customer is responsible for managing the data and application identity and all those stuffs. Okay, so here in platform as a service, the infrastructure, the operating system, and the platform is being offered as a service. That's what we call it as platform as a service. So the last category is software as a service. You get everything ready-made. Okay, so here for an example, Azure App Services, or your Azure databases. These are all examples of platform as a service. And you know, right, you have your Azure or like you can just say Google Suite is very famous for that, right? So you get email, you get your docs, you get your storage, Google Drive, and then even Microsoft has got OneDrive. So all these are coming as a category of software as a service. So let me just what is there. So software as a service, everything is made available as a service. Okay, so you get completely readily consumable software, readily usable software, complete software. Like your if you are talking about travel expense management or travel booking in your office, you might be using Concur, you might be using Workday for your HR related, or you might be using different Salesforce. A lot of different tools are there. So not just for personal usage, even for official usage, there are a lot of applications that are readily available, which can replace your business application. Okay, so you have Dropbox, you have Zoom, Teams, all these are readily available software as a service. Everything listed here are completely given as a service. Even in software as a service model also, you have to take care of these part. Okay, so partially, let me say, accounts identity, it's always customer responsibility, and then the data, it's always customer responsibility. Because data, it's your own thing, right? See, if you are going and giving access to someone who should not have that access, then it's a fault from the customer. Provider cannot take responsibility of improper access management. So based on their role, based on their responsibility, you have to follow the role-based access control. And if you are giving unlimited access or public access to the public, and then if your data is getting if the data is getting lost, or if the data is getting corrupted, then it is not the responsibility of the provider. So data identity management, account management, it is always customer responsibility, including the devices also. You have to ensure that we are allowing only the right devices, the mobiles or the laptops or the desktops. You are allowing only the approved hardware to connect to the cloud platform. So you will always be responsible for the information, the data that is getting stored on the cloud, okay, and then the devices that are getting connected to the cloud, and then identity and access management, which people or which service can be accessed, is definitely customer responsibility, irrespective of software as a service or platform as a service or infrastructure as a service. Customer is responsible for information, data, devices that we are allowing to connect to the cloud, and account and identity management is always customer responsibility. So that is what you need to understand in this service model. Okay, any questions? I know like there will be some questions here. Yeah, I'll answer those. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Stan. So we are taking the backup of the data, right? So where this data will be kept? So it will be kept in the cloud, or we are going to make a separate on-premises for having this backup. So where this backup will be kept?
Okay, so when it comes to cloud backup, okay, yeah, thank you for muting. See, in your on-premises, in your own traditional data center, so we used to have a different mechanism of backup, right? Backing up your data. So you can take a backup on your alternate disk, or you can store it in a USB drive or whatever in your on-premises. You can also do a tape backup, or you can also have an offsite tape. You can move the tape to offsite to have a offsite availability of your content. And also you can do a Iron Mountain or a kind of cloud backup, where you can go and store your data in a third-party backup location. Or you can also do a backup in the cloud, like AWS or Azure or any specific locations. So you get a lot of options in on premises, but when it comes to the data on the cloud, definitely it is getting stored in not on the tape. It is getting stored on a kind of storage device, cloud storage only. Okay, so it is again when it comes to your AWS, indirectly it is stored on your object storage S3, and even within your object storage there are different tiering, right? You have hot tier, cold tier, and if you want to store long-term backup data, you go and archive it, or you go and do a deep archival. Similarly, in cloud, you have Azure blob storage, where all your large objects are getting stored, or your object storage in Azure. So you're in, if you, and for your question, all the backup data is getting stored on your Azure blob, and there are certain data which will be stored for a particular number of days in hot tier, and it will get transitioned to cool tier, and later it will get transitioned to archive tier. There are tiering options available, but it is all object storage is where your data is getting backed up. You can also go and store your data in a third-party cloud if you want to. If you want to have redundancy, you can also choose Iron Mountain, or you can put your data into some other third-party cloud as an alternate. And you can also store your data in Amazon S3 or third-party cloud, and you can have redundancy. But at the end, the data is going to get stored in an object storage.
Yes, and I got the point. So
Yeah, yeah.
is there any timeline we are going to take the backup for this? So because we'll continue work on VMware. So sometime it can be corrected, right? So on which process they will follow to take up these backups?
Okay, see, we have to discuss a lot of things around the backup. So there is a lot of content that are there. So your question is more about how we plan the schedule, how we plan the policy, what is the good time to take the backup, or how long we can store the backup, and all those stuff. So we'll have we have 3-4 hours sessions on that. We have 2 days of session on backup. We'll discuss that in greater detail later.
Thanks, Sam.
Yeah.
So because I affected on this side, so I lost my data in VMware, and finally they said I have to do the work again, so that I have this. So thanks.
Understood. Fair enough. Yeah, we'll discuss that in detail later. Yeah.
Hanley?
Yeah.
Yeah. See, when it comes to the customer service responsibility, these apps and data, say for example in SaaS, it is an apps and data. So that is a kind of a shared responsibility, right? Even we can data also we are going to choose some data from Azure itself. So kind of an administration only we customer has to take. The rest of things like the data which is managed by Azure native data only we are selecting, right? So how it differs like when it comes in a pass or SaaS.
Okay. So Sindhil, let's take an example. Okay. So let's
Yeah.
take customer X. Okay. It can be Sony or Toyota or any particular industry vendor. Even it can be a banking company, banking customer like a Standard Chartered or whatever, right? So do you think that Azure or Microsoft or Amazon will have access to that data? Will you allow access to them?
No, no data. I'm just asking in a different scenario. Like even we have on-premise, we have a database, and we can share it in a hybrid model. But if we are going to choose some database or anything from Azure itself,
Mm-hmm.
so that point of time, Azure is the kind of a shared responsibility, maintaining the database whichever we are procuring.
See,
Only
there are a
the
lot
kind
of
of an administration only we are doing.
there are a lot of areas where the responsibility is still with the provider. The shared responsibility, I would say, it is applicable on possibly the identity and account. I would accept that there is a shared
Yeah,
responsibility.
that is
Plus,
clear for me because
yeah,
identity is completely we should take care. But when
yeah.
it comes to data, if I choose some data, RDMS or anything, if I choose from Azure, so that
Mhm.
point of time, CSP has the kind of more responsible, right? Like we are only choosing the database for the particular applications.
No,
So
see,
this time,
in none of the case, data and information will be a shared responsibility. It will never be a shared responsibility, even in software as a service also. So data and information will always be fully accessible and owned by the customer. So provider will never take responsibility of the data or information within your what do you call within your application, because they will never get access to that, or they will never get control of that. See, I know, like if you talk about the
okay,
physical storage, there are chances that the disk can be connected to a different system, and there are options for that. There are chances for that, but there are commitments, there are terms and condition that doesn't allow, or that doesn't give provider the access on the data and information. So data and information, it's completely the responsibility
customer.
of customer.
Okay, okay. So if it is adding to that, like kind of backup and monitoring, that we can procure from the CSP itself, right? Backup
Correct.
of
Yeah, yeah.
database and monitoring
Yes, yes,
database.
yes. Yeah,
That
yeah. So offering, yeah, managed
what we can.
services. Correct, correct. So see, um, that is what we call it as managed services, right? So managed services means, so when we are going and buying a virtual machine, it is just a virtual machine. So whatever within that virtual machine, like the operating system or the database or the middleware components that we are installing, like your IBM MQ or database, or anything that you install, even your application, all these are not managed by the provider by default. And if you want to have managed services, there are some managed services offering that they provide. So if you want to take backup service from Microsoft or Amazon, or if you want to take monitoring service from them, or if you want to take patching service from them, or if you want to do a antivirus management or vulnerability handling, so these are all something which you can ask as a managed service, or on top of virtual machine, you can go and get that from them. So Amazon call it as AMS, Amazon Managed Services, which means you can on top of your virtual machine, you can pay some more amount for them to manage backup, monitoring, patching, antivirus, vulnerability, FinOps, and so on. So that can also be obtained as a service from the provider. Yes.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
No problem. Yeah. So there are a lot of things to discuss. Okay, we are on top of the time today. I thought of completing a little earlier, but anyways, we have just discussed only 2 topics today. We have talked about cloud definition, okay, and then we talked about the benefits of cloud, and then we talked about the 3 different service model that is available in public cloud. So tomorrow we'll continue discussing the remaining topics. We'll talk about cloud deployment model, disadvantages, how what are the different characteristics of cloud. What I'll also do is I'll also give you some offline session which will discuss about the kind of questions that you can expect from these topics, so that you can refer those before appearing the exam. I'll also give access to that, so you can refer to those content. Okay, so any questions on what we have discussed today, or if you have questions on the topic that we are planning to cover, you can raise it now.
We'll get this Excel also, right? So whatever
Yes,
we
yes, yeah, you
discussed.
will get access to the Excel. Yes, as I told. One second, let me reshare my screen. Let me show you what access you will get. Okay, so after an hour from now, okay, this is the previous one, but I'll show you what kind of content you will get. Okay, let me
And we are
reshare
not
my
seeing
screen.
any screen.
Yeah, I said I'll reshare.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Yeah, let me do that. So here you will see all these things. So every day session will be stored under session notes. So it will have day-wise notification, day 1, day 2, and all this contents will be there. under session notes, you'll also get some sample resumes, which you can use for your resume. And yeah, you will also get access to lab materials. You will also get access to exam dump, ebooks, templates, and then some sample contents. Okay, so yeah, I'll enable access to answer your question. I'll give you access to the session notes.
Can you please share the link also, which you mentioned for Azure event, no? For 1 or 4.
Yeah, it's okay. It's already there in the chat. Oh, okay, you're talking about the overall catalog. Yes, yes. I'll give you the catalog list. Yes. Yeah, Subramanian, I'm not able to hear you, but there is a lot of noise from your side. If there's a question, yeah, you can ask.
Dan, I have a question. Actually,
Yeah.
thing is, I joined a little bit late today. So you were discussing about the plan for the course, right? The things you have jotted down in the Excel.
Yeah.
So if I want to go through this recording, where can I go on? When the recording will be available, and where can I go and see that one? It is there in that.
Okay, so
right?
yeah, at the beginning of the session, I told there is a WhatsApp group specific to this batch, right? So in that WhatsApp group, you have the link here. So the current batch recording link is there. If you click on this link, that link will take you to the session recording. So after the session, within an hour, you will be able to see that same day recording in that particular playlist. And if you are having more time, you can also go and refer to the previous batch recording also. That is also enabled for you all. And also you have a lot of other short videos in related to Microsoft Azure, which you can also